In 2022 and 2023, the world's central banks bought over 2,000 tons of gold. 2,000 tons. That's the most gold purchased by central banks in a single 2-year period since 1950. 73 years. And it's not slowing down. In the first 3 quarters of 2024, they bought another 1,050 tons, on pace for over 1,000 tons for the full year. We're talking about the People's Bank of China, the Reserve Bank of India, the Central Bank of Russia, the National Bank of Poland, the Central Bank of Turkey, Singapore, the Czech Republic. Even central banks in countries you've never heard of are stockpiling gold like it's the last asset on earth. And here's what should terrify you. Central banks are not retail investors. They don't panic buy because they saw a YouTube video. They don't FOMO into assets because the price is going up. Central banks have access to intelligence that you and I will never see. They have economic advisors who've studied every currency collapse in history. They have data on capital flows, trade settlements, debt levels, and geopolitical risks that isn't public. They have intelligence agencies feeding them information about what other countries are planning. And when central banks with that level of intelligence all start buying the same asset simultaneously, they're not diversifying. They're preparing. For what? The collapse of the dollar, the erasure of $37 trillion in debt through the oldest trick in the book, currency devaluation through gold revaluation. The same playbook Roosevelt used in 1933, and you're about to watch it happen in real time. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what central banks see that you don't, the intelligence they have access to, the timeline they're following, the specific mechanism they're using to position before the biggest wealth transfer in modern history, and most importantly, what you need to do right now before it's too late. Because once this executes, once gold gets revalued and the dollar collapses, there's no going back. You will either be positioned with the central banks, or you'll be collateral damage with everyone else holding dollars. Let me show you which side you need to be on. Let me start with the numbers, because the scale of what's happening is unprecedented. According to the World Gold Council, which tracks official sector gold purchases, central banks bought 1,036 tons of gold in 2022, another 1,037 tons in 2023, and as of Q3 2024, they've bought 789 tons, with Q4 likely to push the total over 1,000 tons again. That's 3 years in a row of 1,000 ton plus purchases. For context, before 2022, the previous record for annual central bank gold purchases was 656 tons in 2018. And before that, you have to go back to 1950 to find buying at this scale. We are in uncharted territory. And it's not just the volume, it's who's buying and why they're buying. China. The People's Bank of China added 62 tons in just the month of November 2023. They reported additions for 18 consecutive months through May 2024. Then they stopped reporting. Not because they stopped buying, because they don't want you to know how much they're accumulating. Most analysts estimate China has added 300 to 500 tons over the last 2 years in official reserves. But here's what nobody talks about. Those are just the official reserves that China reports to the IMF. China also has state-owned enterprises buying gold, the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, sovereign wealth funds, investment vehicles that don't report to the World Gold Council. When you add it all up, China has probably accumulated between 1,000 and 2,000 tons of gold since 2022. And they're not stopping. Why? Because China sees exactly what's coming. The dollar is going to collapse. And when it does, the country with the most gold wins. The Central Bank of Russia bought 330 tons in 2022 alone, making them the single largest buyer that year. They've continued buying through 2023 and 2024, despite being under the most severe economic sanctions in modern history. Or perhaps because of those sanctions. Think about this. Russia had $300 billion in dollar assets frozen by the West in 2022. $300 billion that they thought was safe in Western banks and securities. Gone, seized overnight. Now imagine you're any other country watching this. China holds over $1 trillion in U.S. treasuries. What's to stop the U.S. from freezing Chinese assets if there's a conflict over Taiwan? Nothing. The precedent has been set. So what does every central bank in the world learn from Russia's experience? Don't hold dollar assets the U.S. can freeze. Hold something they can't touch. Gold, physical gold sitting in vaults in Beijing or Moscow or New Delhi. The U.S. can't freeze it, can't seize it, can't sanction it. It's yours. Russia now officially holds 2,333 tons of gold, about 25% of their total reserves. That's the highest percentage of any major economy. For comparison, the United States holds 23% of reserves in gold based on the official valuation. Russia is more exposed to gold than America. That's intentional. That's strategic. Because Russia knows what's coming better than almost any country. They've lived through the Soviet Union collapse. They watched the ruble become worthless in 1991. They've experienced Western financial warfare firsthand.